this computer. I think recording in progress.
Got it.
You heard from Ant lately?
Yes, we not since he sent that script off to Paris, the koala movie. So I heard he's back at the end of
Sorry, I'm just muting a couple of, got some feedback here. Sorry. Yeah. That's right. I'm just muting some people here. Yeah. So it's gone off to Paris, right? Okay.
Yes,
that's the koalas, is it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I did tell you my horror story about
Kung Fu koala.
Kung Fu koalas. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you can see it. They're all going to wave it down, please, in the background. Everybody, they're split down the middle, mate, but they can see.
Great. So you're all in one room. That's cool.
Well, about half of us are. So it's yeah. The question is basically, we might as well start up.
Yep.
Raj, you've got to. Who's Raj? You could. If anyone comes in, make sure you're on mute, please. Yeah. Okay. Righto. So, Dan, you look. Whoop. Raj, you can turn your video. Raj, where's Raj? Rajesh. Yeah. Just not sure what's going on here. View. The view is.
Again, if we get time.
Sorry, what?
No.
No. All right. Okay. Raj, turn your. I don't know why we've got you. The speaker should be spotlighted. Sorry, Dan, won't be spotlight for everyone. Try this one. Yeah, that should be the go. Whoever's speaking gets the spotlight this way. Okay, mate. We'll start up. Do you want to start with your London Film School? What you studied? What brought you to film?
Oh, okay. So I always knew I'd sort of wanted to get into film back when I was like 8 or 9, I believe. So I was lucky that when I went through GCSE, which is the English equivalent, I think, of your sort of 16 to 18, I made sure I sort of studied media, was making stuff. So at that point, I knew that I was trying to get into film school. And then I started off at the London College of Printing, which had a really good undergraduate degree in film and video. And what I loved about it, it was 70% practical and 30% theory. So I love the theory backing up what we were doing, but we were actually making stuff. So we made like a film a term. It was really practical and you could change disciplines. And I knew then I was sort of into editing and directing. So those are the two that I did.
So how many years was that?
That was a 3-year undergrad. So I left there with a BA honours in film.
Right. So, yeah. And hi, Walter. Just make sure you're on mute, please, Walter. Just mute yourself. Yeah. Okay. So questions will come up directly into chat, Dan. So we can, it's always fun organized. It's like herding cats.
Yeah.
But so you worked in the UK first, did you, before coming out here?
Yeah, so I worked as an in-house editor at a production company. So there was a production company called Great Guns, and they were doing commercials. And I was like their sort of dog's body editor, which meant I was creating show reels for the directors to go out to the agencies, or more interestingly, I was creating like mood reels for directors to try and win a pitch. So if we had a pitch for, say, Stella Artois beer or something, I'd sit with the director and we'd work out what sort of tone the director was trying to create in the ad. And I'd go through all these movies, which was on VHS back then, which was painful. So I'd have to forward through these VHS tapes, find the bit I needed, grab it in. A lot quicker these days, but so that was quite interesting because I learned a lot of craft from the directors in London. And then I started cutting some of the ads for them. And then when I moved to Sydney, I had a bit of a reel that I could get a job as an editor here. So
yeah, you start off with, you walk straight into an editing job here pretty much. Yeah.
So that was really lucky.
So you recommend, you started as an editor, you started directing your own short films from memory.
That's right. So I was an editor for about 12 years, where I had got into ownership of an edit house and a post house. And that sort of, then I had this bug for, if I'm ever going to do this, I need to get shifting. So I made a couple of short films. The first one, Triple Concerto in D minor, which had a really good festival run. And then the second one, 360, which had won a few good awards that enabled me to get an agent and stuff like that. So the short films, the editing background gave me a wonderful sort of pathway into directing, because I'd very lucky to work with some great directors that I'd learned off of, and seeing rushes, you really get an understanding of piecing together footage of what works, what doesn't, what was missing, what you should cover. So I sort of had a bit of a film school from editing, really. I learned a lot in that capacity.
So it's a pathway, isn't it? I mean, if you can edit, you can make films, basically. You can't do drama, but you can make films.
That's right. There's a lot of pressure when you're on set to be grabbing stuff quickly. It costs a lot of money, especially when we were using film, because you're burning dollars every time you turn the camera on. These days, it's not as pressure heavy on what you're shooting on because it's digital, but you've still got 40 people there waiting around. So you need to be making decisions very quickly. And as an editor brain, I could sort of see it coming together and I could sort of move on quite quickly. Whereas other directors would tend to shoot more just in case they needed it, because it wasn't quite as clear in their mind. So
virtually, although they inevitably become sort of mentors in a way, don't they? Your mentors are wide and varied. You're in the position of being able to see their work, hear them. You're sitting next to them while they make decisions on the cuts too, aren't you?
That's exactly right. Yeah. They'd be sat right next to me while we're there all the time. So
so it's like film school in the can, sitting next to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got that magic moment when you've got to present your work and the client, because it's the class will come to understand that you're not your own client. You're usually making it for somebody else, aren't you? So
when you're in certainly ad world, it's these clients are spending a lot of money. Sometimes it's up to $500,750,000 to create an ad, and you've got to be kind of respectful that they are trying to sell stuff, and you're not just there to make art. You're there to deliver what they want. You're there to deliver what the agency's written. You're there to try and bring all that together and still tell it in the best way you can, because at the end of the day, they've hired you to direct it. So they want your vision, but at the end, and also they want to go, hang on, we do need to show our product in it. So you can't just create, sort of pretty picture.
You made your decision then. You realized that you had the itch you wanted to scratch about directing.
Yeah.
And you know full well that the minute you move from editing to director, you become a competitor for your directors, don't you, in your own town? So you actually took yourself overseas.
That's right. So while I was still in Sydney, I was making shorts, which doesn't interfere with your sort of day-to-day job, because commercials and shorts are very separate, and people don't see long form and short films as the same as commercials, although it is pretty much still telling stories with sound and vision. The industries are very separate. So I was able to continue as an editor in the commercial world to do things like live and pay mortgages. And then I was doing short films on the side, which allowed me to start working on my directing thing. Then when we moved to LA, I was able to make that transition because I was in a different country. I was still popping back for the odd job, but that was where I made the transition. Then when I came back, I could say, and I'm directing now. So it was it kind of worked.
It's interesting that, I know we both know the directors who, it's 14 hours difference, isn't it? You've got a meeting, you jump on a plane, and it can be done. It's grueling, but and now you've got Zoom. Shit. Yeah.
We're doing whole productions on Zoom. Like the last job, I didn't meet the creatives until we were stood on set, which seemed bizarre, but that is just the way it's gone. It has become, COVID has just taught everyone that you don't need to drive an hour to sit in an edit suite for someone. I can bring it all up remotely. I can show the client the Avid in remotely and things like that. So yeah, that the advent of COVID has actually changed the industry, the way we're working even now. So
casting alone is you got to be totally changed. I mean, it's totally acceptable to do it on Zoom now, isn't it?
Yep. So instead of us sitting in a casting suite and seeing a different person every 20 minutes, It is now the actors and actresses go off and create an audition tape, which they film at home on an iPhone or whatever they got. All that comes into the casting agent, and then the casting agent will shortlist what they reckon is the sort of pick of the bunch, and then they shoot them over to the directors. So it's all happening remotely. And then if we want a callback just to check they can take direction or whether they'll work with another actor, we'll just hook up on a Zoom, and I will literally give them something to do, and I'll be watching it live on the Zoom, so that I'll say, can you do that again, but do it a bit more so. So we're doing callbacks still, but it's like this, it's all remote, you know.
So they'll go down to their agents, down to Mullins or whatever it is, and or whoever it is, and sit in front of the camera there and take the direction from you on Zoom. Is it?
They're doing it at home. They're doing it at home. A lot of these actors have got little studios set up in the corner of the room with cameras.
Oh, we're doing it at home. Yeah.
Yeah. So seldom, I mean, sometimes you can force it. Like if it's children, I like to make sure I get on with the child, which is really important, that I have a bit of rapport. So I'll sort of force and there's still studios we can meet in, but generally it's all remote. Yeah.
Have you had, is it change of way? Like we had a session with the Lengel sisters from the Feds, with Jude and Wendy. I used to work with the graphics. And they talked about having doubles for actors because of COVID at the time for those KFC spots. And they had to do it. They had to call it a couple of times. So which meant costume had to have doubles or have looks prepared for multiple people, you know. Somebody's on... somebody's on, yeah. Sorry,
we would go to the extent of having an entire crew as a double. So while COVID was sharp, we would have a DOP, a first AD, a director, and then the client had to sort of sometimes pick up as much as a 40 grand bill just to have a standby crew there, because they were all being paid half the rate. And then sometimes you get a few days before the shoot and go, like they'd either pull the job or they'd say, yeah, we're going to go ahead. It was like that closer call sometimes, because like that, we did a Qantas spot up on Moreton Island, and we had boats and a drone and all this, and the price of like for them to go ahead was crazy, but they needed to get the deal done, so they did it. But that's starting to come off a bit now we've all learned how to shoot sensibly with distancing and all that stuff. That's sort of starting to drop away a bit, but certainly during the peak, I mean, I was having to cast, like I did a big job where we had many cast, as much as like 20 per spot, and we couldn't put two strangers in the same room because we didn't know what COVID was at that time. It was very early on, so I was having to cast from household. So you'd have one actor come along and they'd bring their boyfriend or their girlfriend who had no interest in being there. But it was like I was having to use non-actors because they were in the house with the same person. It was quite stressful. But
okay. Well, what have you done? What was the last big shoot? The last few months? Is it?
So I just did one which was for the ATO. That was sort of for government to say every director of a company needs an ID. That was more edit heavy. The one before that was a nice job for Square, which is the payment system.
I've seen the Square one, yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice job. That was all through Sydney and all with real businesses. So they were all real people in that, which I like. I like working with real people.
So the structure of the industry for you is you tied virtually through a production house, in your case, Rabbit Content.
Yep.
Who have a stable, if you inverted commas, of directors. You're not exclusively for commercials, you're more or less exclusively with them. Is that how that works?
That's right. So Rabbit Content are my sort of agent in Australia and New Zealand. So any work in the commercial sphere is through them, but long form or TV I can do myself. So I just did a job with Disney Plus for that Limitless thing. And that was, I just did that off my own back because I have my own company. So that was really cool. That's just landed on Disney Plus. That was nice.
What was that exactly?
That Chris Hemsworth Limitless documentary.
Oh yes, yeah.
I did a bit on that. So that was up in the Northern Territory, Broken Hill, and Proserpine, which was pretty cool.
What did you do? You created like a long form trailer or something, or?
No, I was shooting the second unit of
Second
the,
unit. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
of all of Chris Hemsworth's memories of when he was a kid. So I was
Ah, okay.
shooting those things. They wanted like a commercial feel to it, so they looked for a commercial visual person. So that
All
was it.
right. Now, is that up on your reel or is it?
No, I haven't. It's only just landed on Disney, so I'll dig it
Okay,
off.
we'll go for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the in for your foreign work, your own ambitions. You've got you while you're doing this, you're still trying to curate your own career, aren't you? You're trying to
Yeah,
make a living,
that's
work
right.
as a director.
Yeah.
You know, you can't work as an editor and a director in your own town because you've jumped the line now. You've crossed over into directing.
Yeah, I've done I'm editing my own work, which is I did use other editors to begin with, but I've thought to myself, I've spent 20 years honing this skill, why not use it?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
worked out really positive because what all the 20 meetings you have to get the thing shot, I sort of know exactly what people are expecting, and it's become quite smooth, touch wood in that respect. But I do respect what an editor brings, a fresh set of eyes, so I'll often throw it to another person to have a look for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm using commercials to obviously do all the day-to-day, still honing the craft, but I'm developing these long form projects, which is certainly where I want to be going soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got multiple pictures going at the moment.
I do. I've got like a bit like Del Boy at the moment. I've got a horror movie, I've got a biopic, I've got a kids film, I've got an animation.
Yeah. With Ant Bowman, you've got the Koala project, and
Yeah.
are you up for director on that? This is an
Oh
animation.
yeah. I brought the project to him. He said, I really want to write
Oh,
this.
right. Okay. Good.
And then I said, great. So we struck a deal, and so I'm shopping that as a producer and a director. So that's my.
You know, how's he going on his projected? What was his little horror film that he was doing in the
I think
States?
it's been put off till January or something.
Dying of encouragement. So, yeah, I know. Fingers crossed. And
I know. Yeah.
it's
So
damned hard, isn't it?
it is hard.
A couple of the questions that they're required to actually ask.
Yeah, I made a few notes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just try to remember what I actually sent you in terms of the questions. Sorry, all accounts questions. Sorry, you probably got them in front of you, less buried than I've got them here in front of me. Sorry, mate, it won't be a second. It's it's all accounts sent. Wait a second. Oh, I've lost you, Dan. So shizer. Hang on, mate. You've probably got them there in front of you, have you? Oh, I can dig them up again. Sorry, they're
Yeah, number one. What do you think are top 3 trends I should know about?
Oh,
So what do I think the top 3 trends I should know about? Probably in the industry at the moment, I'd say there's a bit of a trend for mixed media. So instead of just going out and shooting something, that agencies and directors are mixing in a bit of animation. There's a bit of 2D graphic work. There's like a bit on film, a bit on digital, basically trying to sort of freshen up what we've been seeing on telly a lot. So you'll start to see some graphic work, or there's some animations instead of live action. So I'd say mixed media is certainly one of those things. The other thing is, I reckon, restrained craft I've written, because it's like everybody's paring back to make storytelling a bit simpler. I think that's a trend at the moment. So rather than a million shots at a shot a second, I think stuff's a lot slower edit wise, and there's not as much camera movement. So everything's sort of pulled back, even to like grade and sound design has sort of become a lot more simple, which I really like. That's a really nice sort of it's sort of a more intelligent way of sort of telling things than loud music and fast cuts. So that's quite nice. And I've also noticed that another trend is that people are embracing color again. So where we used to, it was deemed trendy and modern to desaturate everything and make everything look photographic. Now people are really embracing color, which is what I did on the Square campaign. Rather than that be like a documentary, we just made it really colorful and bold and bright, and and embraced color, because color's beautiful. So those are the 3 trends I reckon that sort of happening in the biz at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, just while you're on colour, I'll just
Yeah.
share the screen here. If you don't mind, just take me a second. This one here. Better come on. Stop share, screen share. Why can't I get the screen share working? Yes, I can. Can you see that, Dan?
Yep.
That's
That's
your,
actually not me, that.
that's not you. Now you've done, that's a VW commercial. That's a high, very high end one. What happened there? It's on your reel. Did
No,
you,
that's a different editor, I think.
different edit? This is you, is it?
No, that's not me, mate.
I don't know.
If you if you
Oh,
just
I see. It's just given me, I know what's done. It's picked up somebody else's work. I thought, I can't remember you doing a Volkswagen commercial with a ballerina in Russia. So, yeah,
just put in dnlmitchell.com, that'll be the one.
yeah, dnlmitchell.com.
Isn't that funny? There's another editor called Daniel Mitchell.
Okay, DNL Mitchell. Oh, maybe I've given everyone that, dnlmitchell.com. Anyway, we like,
There you
yeah,
go.
here you are. I'm sorry, I've got the Daymaker. Yes, this sounds awfully, we've looked at this one. We had a bit of a glance last week and
Yeah, cool.
this is more like it. Yeah, you can see the color. Hello, there, Carcor. Hey.
Yeah.
The Daymaker feature in development. This is your long form children's project
Yep.
where you actually went out and shot your own teaser. I'll just
That's
run a
right.
bit of it here. Using an actor in the Blue Mountains. It takes this much work, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So we had a drone here flying over the Blue Mountains, and it was just enough to sort of
Yeah,
all you're really trying to do is tease these people into reading the script, and that is what this does. It opened a lot of doors shooting this thing, actually, so it was worth the effort.
you get a lot of meetings.
Yeah, got a lot of meetings. DreamWorks, Netflix.
That's the book. It's taken from a children's book.
Yep,
Okay,
based
yep.
on that book. Yep.
And
yeah, it's great.
it's a bit darker than the 5-year-olds version.
Yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
sort of
Yeah.
more, it's more like a sort of Harry Potter kind of feel.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. I'm writing about there. Soggy in the Blue Mountains and so on. Who shot it?
This was Matt Stewart shot this.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is some of the work that you produced in your treatment.
Yeah,
the
these are
drawings
the
you've
concept
commissioned.
art. That's right. Yeah.
Commissioned various people. And yeah, I remember your treatment was leather bound.
That's right. Yeah, it was like this big book that I would leave with people. I might have money I must have spent on that, but so there's these leather bound books all over the world now. And I hope one day someone will just look at it and go, "Oh yeah, that was a great project. Let's give that bloke a call."
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it's it means you're serious, doesn't it? It means you're
Yeah, it does. You're not just walking in with a kind of flimsy A3 page stapled together. Then, and they did comment on that. They said it's sort of why I wanted to meet you, because it shows you're sort of serious about your craft.
You got a meeting with Disney out of it, didn't you, from memory?
Yep. It's got close so many times, this project, but it's just so huge that I've learned that as a first timer, I need to make something more achievable. Hence why I'm now looking at a horror movie, because I reckon we can get that done for about $1 million.
Cool.
But this will be my like my Star Wars,
Yeah, the one you keep under your mattress until you get the break, till you get the opportunity to. I'm just thinking about color here.
If you just go to the commercials tab at the top.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll go.
Squeeze up to the top.
Getting there. Okay.
Commercials down the bottom, just that first tab down.
Down. Sorry, mate. Oh, I've hit editing websites. Is that right? No, that's the old web.
That's my editing work. Just home? That. Just no. Just scroll down.
Oh, sorry. Come down. Yep. Okay.
There, commercials.
I can't see it. Why can't I see commercials? It's hidden by. Oh, I see. It's hidden. I think.
No. Just hover over that picture of there.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And just click on it. Is it going to come up? Yeah. Commercials. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Ah, it's on again to me. Sorry. Square brand. Oh, this is the one you've just done recently.
Yeah. So this is just where we used color, I reckon, quite boldly in terms of dark contrast.
Every business does its own thing.
It's not all desaturated and real. It's much more vibrant.
Sorry, mate. I'll turn that down a bit.
You can do your thing anywhere. And take care of everything.
Wow, yeah.
So whether you're as big as a gap or just getting your feet wet, when everything works together, you can keep your good thing going.
Cool, yeah. So you've taken the script from the agency. I'll
Yep.
just stop the share for a sec. You've taken the script from the agency and then you've broken it down, done your own sort of shoot boards and so forth,
Yep.
shot list.
Yep.
And then you sit down with a storyboard artist.
Yep. So I would brief a storyboard artist once I'd seen all the locations and we know what businesses we're using. And this one was quite interesting because the agency were in Los Angeles and Sydney. So I was constantly on the phone with 6 creatives, which is a lot. And they wanted a very specific storyboard to the point that I had to edit the storyboard into 30 seconds to show them how I'd edit it. And the Americans like that. They like to know exactly what they're getting. Whereas
Yeah,
in Australia, we tend to be a bit more fluid. It will be roughly like this, but we actually had edit sessions on the storyboard. So it was like quite interesting.
Okay, cool.
That specific, but it all worked out. We all again knew what we were going into. Everyone knew what we were capturing, how it was going to edit it together, and it was sort of very smooth in that respect because we'd made all the sort of difficult decisions early on, you know.
That multi-screen format that
Yeah.
you got there, that was actually that was planned at the agency stage at that point? Or
Yeah,
was it-
the agency wanted it to match the billboards. So that if you around Manly, you'll see them. They're the huge billboards where they've
Yeah.
broken up into squares, and they wanted to reflect that in the TVC. So we had to make sure we shot enough to cover that kind of style.
Right, yeah. We're familiar with your work. We've been using your NBN call sheets for a year or two now. The fact that it was so planned. I mean, you're doing still shoots, you're doing, this, that, you've got multi-layers of action, you've got photographic plates being produced so you can do.
Yeah.
It's just the sheer amount of kind of planning that goes into it, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
Uh,
all the first AD has a huge job there because that's
Mm.
their job to make sure not only am I getting what I need, but also the stills person's getting what they need for the billboards. And
Yeah.
where you would years back, they would have a whole still shoot to itself. These days, because the money's so tight, that we're all on set together and you have to sort of give each other time. And I respect that. And I always make sure that the stills person has what they need to do. And stuff.
It's a bit of a job, particularly on features. They really get pushed
Yeah,
around. It's
they
a
do.
cow that I wouldn't want to do it. How much time do you get to edit after you've made your commercial, short film, corporate, or something like that?
Probably, I'd say 2 to 3 days. It's not long. It's
That's
2 to 3 days.
And for one, and say that NBN or the Square, well, how many weeks of prep?
Probably about 3.
Tight,
weeks.
tight, and
Yeah.
it's tough, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah,
So
there's no
what
such thing as a
happens-
weekend off.
what happens is the client has a deadline when it needs to hit the telly or the socials or whatever.
Yeah.
The agency and the client bicker, or not bicker, but they just sort of try and get the script to how everyone's happy, which is taking time. Then they go out to 3 directors or 4 directors, take time to decide on that. So basically the time that everything takes longer than they anticipate, but the time it needs to go on telly doesn't ever change. So production and edit and post get squished and squished and squished until generally, because we're at the back of the queue, we just have to get it done in time,
And where do you go for finishing these days? Are you using Method or
Method's gone now, but it's like Vandal or White Chocolate or Finn or Alt. There's lots of post houses in town now, actually, or even just remote. There's lots of people. There's skilled people in India that you may use, or can just farm out shots as you required. So, but generally, it all comes together in a post house in Sydney somewhere.
Somewhere, right? And when you go out directing, you take your trolley and you've got all your editing gear with you, don't you, as well? Is that still happening, or?
No, I'd bring it home, and if I'm on the road, certainly I'd edit in the hotel at the night, just so you keep moving on the job. So whenever I've done a travel job, I'll be loading stuff into the Avid as we're going. So with that intercontinental one, we would shoot a country. As we're traveling, I'd be loading it in, selecting, shoot the next part. Also to help me realize what I've got, what I need to fill, the gaps I've got, that sort of thing. So it's sort of peace of mind as well.
So you direct all day, you edit all night.
Almost, but
Yeah.
what I've found now is I've tried to get the producers to schedule in a day of nothing. So when we finish the shoot, I need to like a mind gap before going in. So it's like I'm a different person. I need to use a different head. Like, don't think about how hard that shot was to capture. Does it work as a
Yeah,
storytelling?
yeah.
So,
Can we move that second question on your list there? Could you just,
Yep.
that one?
technology is changing the way we work. What's the top 1 or 2 emerging technologies do you think I should be kept abreast of? So basically, obviously, it's all heading in AR and AI sort of, that seems to be the way we're going. And there's technology in those worlds that's actually frighteningly quick, that the way it's happening. So if you were interested in sort of 3D or post or animation or gaming or that sort of thing, Unreal is becoming a very trendy thing that everyone's using, because you're actually rendering in real time, which is extraordinary. So you can have whole environments like they did The Mandalorian like this, where the actors are acting on green screen, but you're watching a live picture of them in their environment. And this technology can render that quickly. So where we would usually have 20 computers rendering like a frog bouncing across the screen or whatever, there's now technology that does that in real time. So Unreal is something that if that's a sort of interest, that's something to have a look at. It's really interesting. And then the other thing is just really remote working practices, I reckon, is the way the whole industry. Like I'm now having to have software that allows me to edit live with people in America or whatever, where they can see a live feed from an Avid, and it's all coming from here in my studio sort of thing. So it's like, I think that's the real working practices now. We are doing everything on Zoom, and people want stuff like, hang on while I do this, it needs to be fluid. And so I think remote working practices is actually a real thing that we should be. It's not just a COVID thing, it's becoming a way of work now.
We had a director of does little corporates, and so he does long form documentary and stuff. He made a feature film on John Farrow, and was at the Sydney Film Festival earlier this year. But he did a shoot for an arts story for the ABC, and just sent his information up, had long lines with the DP up there to do the interviews, had the question, and managed to control it, and got more or less the result he wanted. That was a COVID enforced, but it's still.
Yeah, there's still directors who is directing via iPad because they're in a different country. I can't get my head around that. Like they are walking around, like talking to actors. It's sort of like bizarre, but that's actually becoming something that's acceptable now. You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah. What's the third question there? I'm just trying to move on here.
How do you stay ahead of the game in your role in this competitive industry? How do you stay ahead of the game? I reckon it mainly is reinvention. So it's all about reinventing yourself. So some directors will go from music video to shorts to commercials to long form. It's reinventing what you're doing. My path was obviously editing to shorts, music video, commercials, and then the next step will be film, hopefully. But also reinventing your reel, like because a show reel for commercials goes out quite a lot, and often to the same agencies. You need to be changing it, or else they go, seen it, I know that what that person's all about. You need to sort of throw something in there that looks a bit different or feels a bit different. So it's basically reinvention to try and keep yourself relevant, really. And that's why people like the Jonathan Glazers of the world, or even Deneen to a point, it's like just staying current, relevant, trendy, up with the new techniques, like if that is like we talked about using mixed media or restrained craft or whatever. So it's really just about reinvention. So that's how you would
it sounds similar to actors too. Just reading actors, they do a big action and then they J Law, for example, jumps between indies, little indies. Now she's working out how to go between blockbusters like Hunger Games to, little personal films, sort of thing. She did one that was almost a three-hander recently. It's on Netflix. I think what's it called again? It's she's a soldier with PTSD in a hometown. It's almost nothing, and she'll probably go to another blockbuster, but just keep
That's it.
reinventing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's what's the next one down? Just
It is, what is your greatest achievement in your career and why? And what is your greatest failure or regret? And what did you learn from it?
Hmm.
So probably,
Sorry,
guess,
I didn't write these, but go on.
greatest achievement, I guess, I reckon getting my letters was pretty cool. That was, I got ASC letters for my editing work. And
Oh,
I
right. Okay.
really
Yep.
that was really awesome to be respected by my peers and get that.
Mm.
And then my first short, the Triple Concerto, I'm very proud
Yeah.
of. But it made the top 10 that year, nearly got the Oscar nomination, which was exciting. And also it got into like curriculum of schools to teach children. And I thought that was pretty awesome that a film can actually have a life like that. So I'm pretty proud of that.
We watched the trailer.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, it's cute. It's still a beautiful little film.
Yeah, 35 mil. Love it.
Yeah, beautiful. And then greatest failure or regret. I reckon I was offered a feature in America, which I said no to. And often I go back and go, did I make the right decision there?
I was thinking about that the other day. I think I might have led you astray, but yes, it's you make two films with that script,
The first and your last. Yeah. So
I don't know.
that was one, and I thought it was interesting to bring that up because it was like, why do you turn stuff down? And it's because I think brand is important, and I'm sort of trying to create children's stuff or whole, like family yet with a bit of political commentary on like climate change or something like that. And this was really body parts in fridges and blood on walls, and it was not my mojo at all. So
it was a rotten
sometimes
script.
I think if I'd have done that, what would I have gone on to do? Like I'm looking at a horror film at the moment, but it's much more sort of like The Omen, or it's much more smart. Whereas this,
the other one wasn't.
And then the other thing I regret is I was sent that Maggie script, which was
I know. Yeah.
Maggie was a zombie film about a teenager going through the challenges of becoming a zombie, which was obviously a commentary on sort of becoming into adulthood. And it just took, for some reason at that point, I think I just had a new baby, and it took me a while to read the script. And then by the time I had, the momentum was so quick that they'd gone on to somebody else. So that was a good lesson about, like, if something comes in or there's a bit of momentum with something, you've really got to attach quickly, and things move very fast. Things can move at glacier speed, but things can move really quickly too. So,
Is that the one Arnie did eventually?
Yeah, so it went from it kind of turned into a bit of a shame. At the time, it was Chloe Martinez. What's she called? Chloe
Moretz. Chloe Moretz, is it? Yeah.
And
it was a good script. It's a good script.
Great
reading it with you.
Yeah. So that was just a couple of things that I'd sort of learned from.
You would have done a better job than the guy that they used too. I think he was an animator or something, wasn't he?
That's right. He was a post person, and Harry Hobson or something. He'd done some big films, so I get why they used him.
But here's Arnold wanting to reinvent himself in the sort of humanity zombie category rather than I'll be back. Okay, there's another question down the bottom.
Last question is, what are the tips you would give your young self now you know what you know about the industry? And probably I would say follow your gut. Like a lot of the times we all have unique voices, which we are, like in our film or our creative work, we all sort of have a unique perspective on things. And a lot of people in film or commercials are all trying to push in a certain direction because it needs to be this. But I really think you need to believe in yourself and have a belief that you're traveling the right path. So like I've often done an edit and gone around in circles and then I've just ended up back where I started because I'm like, that was where my gut was telling me to go, and I should have just stuck with that. So I think that's a good thing. Also, listen to experience. Like, I've learned a lot from, people in the industry that have been around for years, and you get some creatives that are just, it's my way or the highway. But while I just said you need to trust yourself, you also need to just have a balanced view of listening to other people and then take it in and just decide which path you're going to go. So I think there's a lot of value in the people around you. And then also I've written that I've learned that a career is a marathon, not a sprint. So sometimes something doesn't happen, like a film doesn't work out and you think it's all doomed and it's a disaster, but everybody has their own path and you will find a way. And I've learned that it's okay if something doesn't happen because there's a million other paths to take. So yeah, those are the things that sort of
Yes, persistence counts. And so look, questions in the chat there while we've got Dan on board here. Very lucky to have this Dan available at this time of day particularly. Yes, right. Yeah, it's busy up there, isn't it? Yeah. So just see if there's any direct questions there for you, but just looking down to see what they were. The landscape for you've got what, 4 or 5 projects going. Who creates the treatments with you? Who are you using to do your treatments?
When I'm doing commercials, at Rabbit we have a creative director who does the design work and stuff. I'll always do all the writings. There are treatment writers out there that sometimes the director will brief and then they'll go off and write it. But I feel like I actually learn a lot about the job by writing it myself. I will really work out what the job's about before in the treatment. And now I've picked up enough design stuff that I tend to do that kind of work myself, certainly for the film stuff.
And you're doing work, you're basically working on InDesign or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. InDesign for the treatments. And then if I need for film, for the koala thing, I got a concept artist to just jot up a picture of what I reckon the koala could be. Or
so you went to that's your concept, is it? I should actually go back into that. Sorry, Matt. I'll just go back across the koala pitch here. I've got the screen share up here at the moment.
I don't know if there's much on this website, but essentially that is one of the koalas I had drawn up, which was
right. Okay.
I feel like, and there's that if you go down, that is the
yes, I saw this this morning. Yeah.
Tolkien style. This is the journey that the koalas need to make. And I just I felt like I wanted to sort of show that I don't want this to be Blinky Bill or Back to the Outback. It's not for 2-year-olds.
Right.
Feel like Watership Down. It's like an adult movie for children rather than a children movie for adults, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And this is some of your sort of mood board referencing from. This is Night and Bald Mountain or Watership Down or
Wolf Walkers. That was a great film.
Which one, sorry?
Wolf Walkers.
I haven't seen it, but some of the class might have, But I know with Tolkien, he always had he drew maps.
Yeah.
I think they did Lord of the Rings as well,
This was really handy for screenwriting too, in terms of they leave Kira's tree bottom right, and they basically go up to Koala Utopia top left, and these are the obstacles they have to go across.
And it's got bushfires and eco message threaded through it and so forth. Yeah, okay. So I'll just stop the share. That's and it's so far you've been in the business, what, 20 something years or something like that? You haven't been counting.
23 or 4. Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight, except very, very rarely, does it? What about you say in Australia you've got an agent for commercial work? What about agents for drama work here? Say looking at Netflix or HBO or whatever it is and things like that.
Yeah, I have a London agent at a place called Independent Talent Group, and they are good at sort of hooking up meetings in America or England, and that was actually based on my Daymaker project I got with her. So so she's been handy for those sort of things. I hope she's going to help with this horror movie too. So it is helpful to have them. However, honestly, most of this is like DIY. Most of the stuff is through connections or just constantly peddling the pavement, or people knows people and then you get it through that way. An agent is kind of handy if you need one big call at the end, but getting to that point is usually, it's all DIY, to be honest.
So the question, sorry, there's a little thing there. Again, I know you sort of answered first time, but can you please explain how you stay ahead of the game in your role in this competitive industry? It sort of comes back where reinvention is totally keep new formats, new this, new that, but you still got to listen to your own gut instincts. For example, you wouldn't want to go off and do,
comedy. Yeah, I wouldn't go and do a budgie smuggler commercial or something, if like
broad comedy
things that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing, and there's much better people out there for it. So but I think reinvention in terms of your craft or how you're telling the story, or the way the camera's moving, that sort of thing. So you want to be able you want the producers to be able to have something fresh to sell, really. So
there's a question from James for you here, Dan. Do you prefer more field work or behind a computer work? And what was your least favorite project to work on, and what did you learn? It's a multiplicity of sins here.
I think I definitely prefer field work. So I think that's why I was keen on the transition to directing, because I had sat behind a desk for 15 or 20 years editing, which I certainly learned a lot and still love it, but I do prefer to be out there. I love photography, so I love getting out into the world and feeling it and seeing it. And certainly on this recent Disney project, we went to it was so remote that we were on a chartered flight out of Darwin to the middle of Arnhem Land. Then we were in a truck for 3 hours over unsealed roads to get to this specific place where they could perform this Aboriginal performance or whatever. So it was to get to see that kind of thing in that location, where what we caught in the river was what we ate that night for dinner. It was that remote.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of cool that really, I felt quite sort of spiritually touched during that whole experience with the Aboriginal children and stuff. So I think that was very special. And my least favorite project to work on, probably it's as an editor, I think it's when digital came into fashion. So we've been working on film, where film is money, and you tend to get about an hour's rushes for a 30-second commercial. So there's a bit of a ratio there that you're going to get it done in a couple of days. When digital came in, everyone went out and bought these 5D cameras. So my first job in digital land, they shot 24 hours of footage, and I had to get it down to 30 seconds. I didn't sleep for 3 or 4 days. It was ludicrous. And it was just nonsense.
Was that Optus job, was it?
It was some chartered accountant thing where they'd gone around the world.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're going around the world and came back 20 hours and you wanted 30 seconds. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And it was also most of it was just people not even thinking about what they're doing, because they didn't think that it didn't cost them anything. So they thought, what the hell, let's just film whatever, because there might be something in it. Well, there's an editor that has to go through all that nonsense and find the bits, and it's not really fair. But that has come off a bit now. Everyone's become a bit more disciplined, that you can't just shoot hours of stuff just in case. There's some structure to it,
There's a question about DSLRs. Cameras can help new filmmakers make short movies, can get into film festivals. You can get the questions, I guess, about quality of what sort of cameras do you need for.
Yep, I think that's a great point. I think we no longer you don't need to have thing at 4K shot on an Arri 65 or whatever, or 35mm. There's Sundance has short film winners that are shot on iPhones now. It's definitely not about technology, it's about the story, and it's all comes down to the story and the power of the narrative over the quality of the production, for sure. I've been to many of those short film school classy things, and it really is about story, not about how great the DOP is. Or of course they look at craft, and I think it was interesting, one session I did at Flickerfest, it was years back when we were there with that 360. Sundance were looking for much more raw like people just making stuff, whereas academy level was about craft and they wanted to see someone could walk onto a feature the next day, whereas other festivals are purely looking at craft storytelling. So DSLRs, iPhones, all these things are great tools for us to just practice, make stuff, you know, all that sort of thing. So that's a great point, actually. Yeah.
There's a question you mentioned there about, yes, directing can be a lifelong industry. I mean, Jesus, Clint Eastwood, you know,
Yeah. Incredible.
what's Clint, about 92 or something, isn't he now? Yeah. And I was staggering out after swimming yesterday, I'm feeling sore everywhere. I was getting out of bed thinking about it. How does George Miller at 77 or whatever knock out another Fury Road 5 with 5 units across the, yeah, you don't need to stop really, do you? Although
No.
you could do the Hitchcock and sit in the chair, couldn't you? And
Yeah,
get carried.
actually, I was lucky to do an edit with Clint Eastwood when I was in LA.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, so
Wow.
his wife was making a thing about music. She's a passionate, and he's very passionate about music.
His music's his real,
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
So I ended up on his Carmel Ranch in their edit suite, and he sat in the
know that.
corner playing the guitar. Yeah. And
Really?
yeah,
Holy
he's such a relaxed. But you know what he was just passionate about film, even like at that point where you think, can you still be, you know, at that age? But he's still so passionate that he sat there while his wife is editing a little documentary thing, you know, and he was still there inputting, because I was helping her out, and it was just like, even then he still loves music, still loves film, you know. So
He's done the soundtrack for a couple of his films too, hasn't he?
yeah, that's right.
Is
Yeah.
it like a jazz piano tracks and things like that? But he's still, you can tell he's still engaged, because you sort of give up, but then there's always moments going on in there, and even, you know, yeah, it's not like he's doing it by numbers, even though he flies
No.
home at the weekend, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you got to love that. There's a question there from Walter, Dan. Says, can you see it down on the side there in chat?
Yep.
Walter's got a question. If you recently finished studying this industry at TAFE, please mention 3 jobs of work that you should look for to be successful with a great experience here. You know, maybe 3 types of jobs possibly that I think your question, Walter, was about having a CV or a reel, sizzle reel, show reel, something, 3 styles of work, maybe something like that. I'm not sure what you mean, but
probably 3 jobs, maybe if depending on what you want to do. So if you want to get into editing, then there's the ASE has a really good sort of that's the Australian Screen Editors Guild, and there's there's also a guild for DOPs, which is the AAC, Australian Cinematographers Society, AACS. Now, all these guilds are about encouraging new people, new talent. They set up mentors, mentee things. So I'm actually a mentor for editing at the moment, and they will pair you up with people that can actually talk you through, guide your career a little bit. Also, getting experience if you want to be out on set or whatever. There's often DAs, which is a director's assistant, and a director's assistant is there to do everything from like pick up this or go there, can you pick up that person, bring them here, but you're also, as part of casting, you're there to help with storyboarding. So a DA is a really good job. In commercials, a DA is sort of helping win the job, so you can be in a production company and just be helping source images for inspiration, or help write the treatment. So that's quite a good role. Or if it's posts that you're interested in, there's many post houses and they often take interns, like we used to do. Bob is take interns just to give them some experience. So I think it's just about sort of there, while it feels like it's an industry you can't break into, there's actually a few paths that have been set up for that very reason, like the societies to help people get into the industry.
Yeah, I think the producers, SPA has got a pathway too. I'm actually the education liaison for the Production Design Guild.
Oh, there you go.
But you've got to be a fair way up the ladder. Look, I met the master's design students the other day. They were at a farewell dinner, and Jesus, they're not smart. Yeah, they're quite intimidating, the skills they've got now. They've got massive, you know, concept art skills and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
And they're
sure.
working, they're all working on Furiosa Road, you know, the new one.
Oh, wow, right. Yeah.
And they didn't even get to go on the shoot, but there was so many, the
Wow.
landscapes got so big. But yeah, it's the pathways. I'll talk to the class about it, but you've just got to be persistent and patient. But I think Walter also, it's about having a sizzle reel in your CV and showing styles. But then again, if you want to just do fiction,
Yeah.
non-fiction, faction, reality.
Yeah, documentary stuff. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, what was quite trendy. I was just chatting to a director friend today. I had coffee, and he said that when he started out, there was 3 mates and they didn't each have enough of a reel, so they came together as a collective, and they were able to bring together their work to make
cool.
a collective of 3 people. I thought that was really smart. And also that is that thing about reinvention. A collective is actually something that's quite interesting, and it's like, so I thought that was really quite an interesting story.
It is a business. It's a money-based business. It's an expensive thing to do. The most expensive aspect of filmmaking is labor, cost of labor.
I mean, talking about iPhones as well, like he was also telling me that a bloke had just shot a job for FIFA, which had Messi and Mo Salah and all these football stars. To win the job, he went out and shot the commercial on an iPhone with his mates. And the post was so good in it, it was almost as good as the final thing. But they went to that extent that they shot the whole thing like one of them had a wig on to indicate who Mo Salah was going to be. It was like, and then he won this job, like $1 million quid job. It's just based on another way of reinventing the way to pitch on a job. Is he went out and shot the whole thing. Just because he thought that was a better way of telling the story than to write a treatment that someone has to read and interpret and stuff. So that takes a bit of skill and a bit of time and money, but still, it's another way of just changing the way you do stuff.
What you've just sort of brushed upon there is the importance of networking too. Just stay current. I keep saying to my students, they won't come and find you in your bedroom.
No.
So you need to put yourself out. You make films. You need to enter films in festivals. You need to go to them. Do the walk and talk like you did up in Gympie.
Yeah, that's right. Like there's the festival circuit was fantastic in terms of networking, meeting people. It is all about being there to, the other night I just went to an opening of an art gallery, which was in Surrey Hills, and it was with some animation people, and I just got chatting to somebody who then I've now connected with and to work on other things. So it's just all that kind of staying. It's a bit hard when you've got kids, but there is if you can just sort of keep involved or just go to the odd thing or networking is huge. I mean, the social media is a way to do it actively. You can actually, DOPs tend to be really good at it. They'll shoot a spot and it will be straight on Instagram. Just shot this spot.
Yeah.
Some stills, and then people sort of go, oh, he just shot that. I might see if he's available for this one. So it's often just about throwing yourself in front of people sometimes,
So you working mostly with Matt for commercials, is that right? Or Danny, or who?
No, just different people really. I've used Danny a lot. Matt's there. I've used Max Walter, he's a young DP who's sort of really good, hot at the moment. So I like to just work out what the job needs to be and then find the correct DOP.
Yeah. It's also refreshing to work. I used to try and put new people on my team almost every job, try someone and just a different viewpoint and different, eye and so on. There's a question here from James, mate. It said, might be a bit of a cliche, but it's a director. What's your favorite film? What's the film that motivates you to make more?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know you'll like that one.
Probably, I still love It's a Wonderful Life because it has such a beautiful heart, and I'm always trying to make or write stuff that has a big heart in it or a big soul to the film. And that's a good example of a film that is the best craft in the world because there's actually jump cuts. The continuity is a bit jumpy, but the story is just so powerful that it's just magnetic. So, and also I love magical realism. So that's something that has always appealed to me, that film. So yeah, that would be my best. That would be my favorite.
Interesting. Yeah. memories of murder for me, but it's
Oh,
only
yeah.
because I like conundrums. I like mystery. I like,
Yeah.
sort of different approaches, work with the
Yeah.
ensemble directing and that,
Yeah.
mind you, if you ask me in 10 minutes, it'll be another film, but it's a,
Yeah, I know. Like, all the, like Under the Skin is incredible. So there's
yeah, I love
quite a
Under the
lot I
Skin.
really love. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would, if I had to pick one to go to an island with, it would be that one probably.
Is that Glazer, Under the Skin?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, a good director who works between music videos, commercials, and features. And the features are wonderfully strange,
Wonderful.
nice.
And you know that he's someone who has made wonderful choices. He hasn't been sucked
Mm.
into a huge blockbuster. He's always made really interesting art house, and he's once every 10 years sort of guy. So
Yeah. There's a question here, do you think community TV broadcasting should be funded again? Or can't see you saying no. Give filmmakers a chance. Community TV broadcasting, is there much out there of that? I don't know.
don't know actually. Yeah.
There's a lot of community needs to be digitized. Yes, that's a probably, yes, industrial film sound like not really that often the value. Yeah, historical footage. It's not really a question, but it's yeah. I mean, we've all got opinions on values of archives and storage, but it's very hard to actually see it without digging around in. And I know I've had to go down to the National Film Sound Archive to view things, and
Yeah.
they were wildly underfunded. They're being repaired a bit now, but
it really is still is a country that is government. It really is like government funded. And while we have Stan now, which is good, and Paramount, Netflix a little bit, but really our industry is sort of fed through the government funding. So that is all, they should be pushing all that for sure, because the industry will eventually shrivel. But it's, like you go over to London or American, private equity is what it's all about. So it's deemed a bit easier to make stuff because you're not just going to one place,
Yeah.
So
we're in a bit of a social welfare kind of, it's a bit like charity thing.
Yeah.
We only get films made because they got 40% tax rebate.
Yeah.
Which is really about 34%, but of this local, or we wind up as, I use the metaphor, being a nation of bed makers for an international hotel chain when we work on blockbusters.
Yeah, right.
They're bringing their own hods out now and so on. And
that's crazy now. Yeah.
There's also that thing now, it was pushing again the other day about, trying to push Netflix and the others into doing more Australian content. They make the bare minimum.
That's right. Yeah.
To keep the legislation off their backs. It's less than 2%, isn't it? Mate, we've kept you over an hour, and I promise not to, you probably got family waiting behind that door out there. So yeah. Any last questions from the room here? Here's your chance before we clock off for the night. But otherwise, I think, fantastic, mate. Listen, thank you very much. I hope everybody can give you a little bit of a clap on their I hope you can hear them up there.
Yeah.
I'll talk soon, buddy.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone. See ya.
Thanks, mate. Take care. Bye. Now I've got to get the download of this. Yeah. Okay. So actually, where the record go? I did hit record. On the top, is it? Recording. Okay. Now I can stop that.